other states that enjoy Republican.
Getting that water from the water sitting there.
Can we talk about Category 5 hurricane? Now, the strength right now of the winds in Andrew is what?
It's 150 miles per hour.
And holding there?
Yeah, I think we can say with some assuredness that we're going to have a maximum 150 mile an hour hurricane. We're actually seeing a little bit of fluctuating, which we expect, which may take it actually maybe 10 miles per hour, even 15 miles per hour lower. But the fact is we're still talking about a devastating hurricane in that core area of that fairly narrow core area that's going to come ashore, wherever it's going to come ashore. But we know it's fluctuating down a little bit, but it can also fluctuate back up. It's just a matter of where it is in the cycle. It's a natural cycle that hurricanes go through, where what we talk about when we talk about the wind speed is sort of an average over a period of time.
People have seen these kinds of graphics like the one on your screen like right now many times before, and I imagine there are still some folks, believe it or not, who are sitting there shaking their head going, well, maybe, just maybe this thing is not going to hit us. And for those folks, you have to tell them it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It's absolutely for sure. No question about it. It is going to happen tonight. In fact, the numbers that we have up there right now and the distance from Miami, we show 240 miles, is the 5 p.m. You can actually subtract about 30 miles from that now, so it's more like 210 miles as we're 2 hours later, and the system is going about 16 miles an hour. So about 210 miles. It still is on track. Our time frame that we've been talking about appears to be right. Sometime shortly after midnight, we would notice a significant deterioration in the weather. It may deteriorate off and on until then, but then a significant deterioration. Not that it's just going to be a steady, increasing, getting worse, getting worse, getting worse, getting worse. That's not what we expect. We expect it to get worse a little bit, maybe get a little bit better, then get a little worse the next time, and get a little better and get a little worse the next time, until that core comes in, wherever that comes in, and boy, you're not going to miss that, because it's going to be as loud as anything and as frightening as anything you've ever heard, and then it's going to be gone, and it's going to be gone in about the same time frame of about 6 hours till it's essentially over, and I expect that by mid-afternoon tomorrow, we'll have sunshine. We may have sunshine by early afternoon.
What about the tide situation? Do we get a break at all with the tide?
No, we don't get a break with the tide, really. We get a half a break with the tide. The high tide at Miami and Fort Lauderdale is around 5 a.m. The most intense part of the storm is expected more like 7 a.m., maybe 7:30. So we're more or less mid-tide. So the storm surge heights that we have been talking about, we haven't talked about this in a while, would be operative here. 9 to 13 feet on Biscayne Bay. The highest tides we can expect are actually on the west side of Biscayne Bay, on the Miami, Coconut Grove, Coral Gables side of Biscayne Bay. The reason for that is that the bay is so shallow that ocean water gets piled up in there and then just piles up higher. So 9 to 13 feet there in Biscayne Bay. Along the coast, 7 to 10 feet all the way along the Dade-Broward County coast is what we would expect. It turns out the storm surges are a little less in Broward County than they are in Dade County, and significantly less in Palm Beach County. That's because of the way the ocean bottom slopes offshore of Broward County. It's a steeper slope, so the water doesn't pile up there so much as a more gradual slope off of Miami Beach and Dade County.
We, I understand, have Joe Brennan standing by with Metro Traffic to sort of give us an update on how the roads are looking. I imagine there are a lot of people who are still out there right now, Joe.
Sure are. As a matter of fact, mostly up in Palm Beach County now. A lot of the delays we're seeing on 95 and the Turnpike heading out of northern Broward County still quite slow heading up through Palm Beach County and points northward as a lot of folks try and head out of town and up towards Orlando. We're seeing a lot of barren roadways throughout Dade and Broward now. It's settling down a little bit, which is good news. Traveling along the Interstate 595, also on the Florida Turnpike, at least through southern Broward. So far, we've been checking that out, and it looks like things thinning out a little bit, which is good. A few notes out there. One accident reported a bit ago right off the Palmetto Expressway, or actually North Miami Beach Boulevard. At Northeast 16th Avenue, they do have Florida Highway Patrol has notified us that you better leave the Middle Keys by 7 o'clock. After that, they're not assuring any kind of safe passage at all. The Upper Keys has until 8 o'clock to get out. Of course, the earlier, the better in that situation. And that's the latest from Channel 4.
All right, thanks, Joe. We understand just got a word in that Highland Oaks Middle School is now closed as a shelter. If you were planning to use that as a shelter, you're going to have to make another plan because that information just coming in, it is...
Although, don't let that deter you. If Highland Oaks Middle School is the only school where you know where it is,
go knock on the door
to
there.
Highland Oaks Middle School. They will either take you there or they will help you in every way to get to the nearest shelter. So even though some of these shelters are filling up, the reason we're talking about them filling up is because we want to fill up the system completely. So we had a question here somewhere. Someone was asking, what is the southernmost shelter in Dade County? It was on your list over there. The easy southern shelter that I know of off the top of my head is South Miami High School, which is at the corner of Miller and Ludlam in South Miami. So anybody in South Dade County surely knows where Ludlam Road is, and Miller Road is the main, is 56th Street, Southwest 56th Street, the main intersection there. So for you folks in southern Dade County that don't know where else to go, most of the shelters indeed are in northern Dade County because much of southern Dade County is an evacuation zone. So clearly up in the northern end of the county for Dade County is where those shelters are. But one we know of that is easy to find in southwest Dade is Miller High School, so that will get you started.
Let's share with you right now a couple of the questions that we've been getting in. Actually, we've gotten piles and piles of questions. So
why don't we go through it? I think that if one person has a question, probably many, many more have the same question.
Sure. How about this one, Brian? This is a very interesting question. What about burglar bars and security bars? If you have them over your windows and your doors, will they protect your property? Will they keep those windows and doors secure, more secure?
Well, more secure, I think, would be the right way to describe it. They're certainly not as good as shutters because all they do is keep big debris out. If some big branch comes flying at your house, they're going to help deflect that. But clearly, if it's a pebble, they're not going to help with that situation. So don't get any false sense of security because you have burglar bars. We still have weather conditions out there that will allow you to put up plywood. Oh, we have some late information. All right, let's, well, this is about the strength of the storm. All right, I'll tell you what. Let me get to that in just a second because that's not telling us anything huge and new except that there's nothing really new and certainly nothing good there. To finish this thought, that we still have time that if you have a way to do it, that you can still put plywood behind the burglar bars. You can, actually fit it in there, and any part of the window you protect, you're gonna do yourself a lot of good. So even if you have a sliver at the top, we're not trying to stop the pressure of the wind here. We're trying to stop flying debris, whether it's gravel or whether it's whatever it might fly. You can just imagine all the things that are going to be flying around out there. It could be just anything. Maybe I should do this here. We do have an update. Brian Allen is going to be updating our screen there, but 200 miles east of Miami, the latitude is 25.4 north, indicating a due west movement. That at this stage, with this continuing motion, will bring the eye ashore south of Miami, so somewhere in the central part of Dade County, and that would be where the eye would come ashore. Again, the strongest part would be north of that. And we're going to Bob Sheets in about 20 seconds. The pressure, again, we were talking about the pressure a second ago. The pressure is maintaining itself, so we don't expect anything stronger here. We don't expect Bob to see anything stronger. All right, 10 seconds away. You want to go?
Yeah, just a quick reminder, if you can't be by a television set for whatever reason, you can keep it tuned right here and to Y100 to hear that. Here's Bob Sheets right now.
Course towards South Florida. The center of the hurricane will likely pass across the Dade, Broward area sometime near dawn in the morning. You see the eye of the hurricane here on our satellite imagery. It's now located about 200 miles to the east of Miami. Some of the outer bands are approaching our coast at this time. I'm Bob Sheets from the National Hurricane Center in Coral Gables, Florida.
All right, he was giving us the information that we had here. I was just going to do the calculation. If I was thinking a little more clearly, we could do this in my head. But what I did is I took the 16 miles an hour and I divided it into the 200 miles, and I came up with 12 and a half hours. So that's why we're talking about 7 o'clock here. Again, that's the center of the eye. The most intense part of the eye would be a little ahead of that. So sunrise being just before 7 o'clock. So that's how that came to be.
And just heading into Bob Sheets' live update, where we were talking about Y100, we are simulcasting with Y100. That is 100.7 on your FM dial. so you can listen to the audio portion of our broadcast if you can't be near a television set. So we'll try to keep you informed throughout.
Also, we have emergency power here, and I know most folks don't have emergency power, and Y100 has emergency power. So we'll, through the cooperation of Y100, stay with you even after your power goes off. Now, we had a question, and I don't know the complete answer to this, but I'll give you the part of the answer that I know. Someone called and said that they understood that FP&L would shut off the power at midnight. Now, I don't believe that to be the case. If someone from FP&L wants to call us and tell us something different than what I say here, then feel free to do that. But what my understanding of the way the system works is that when the FP&L feels like there is significantly deteriorating weather to threaten the power grid, because if they maintain power during the storm where things are shorting out and wires are falling down, it's going to take them so much longer to get it back up that they will at some point shut off at least part of the power grid, in other words, part of the power to parts of the city as it feels threatened, in order to make the recovery phase that much better. And also because a bunch of lines get knocked down and the power is still on those lines, that is a life-threatening situation all in of itself.
Let me ask you something. A home that is totally electric versus a home that has gas and electric, which is safer in this storm,
well,
in the face of the storm?
During the strongest part of the storm, I would shut off both the electricity. First of all, the electricity will probably be off, okay? But once the electricity goes off, I would go and shut off all of my breakers except for maybe one.
Okay.
And the reason for letting the one on that has a light, just so you know what the status of the power is, you know. But because if the power is flickering or something like that, you don't want to have your refrigerator or your air conditioner or anything else turned on and plugged in, because you'll do more damage than not. As a matter of fact, while we're talking about refrigerators, now is the time, folks, to go out and set your refrigerator to the lowest setting you can, your refrigerator and your freezer. Now, if you have not done that already, take all the jugs of water that you have, don't fill them all the way up. As you know from up north, they expand and they'll explode on you. But don't fill them all the way up, but pack your refrigerator with all the water you can get in it, or your freezer. Pack your freezer, and then when you get done that, put it in your refrigerator with all the water jugs you can get in there. Close the doors. In fact, you might even want to seal the doors and turn them up all the way until the power goes off, and that'll preserve that food that's in there for as long as possible, because the cold water will trap cold, will help to maintain the cold inside there. And you can actually get 2 to 3 days if you don't have to open that refrigerator, or if you do, be very efficient about opening it. You might even want to arrange the food in the refrigerator so you can get to what you're going to need really quickly, because every second that refrigerator door is open while the power is off is the potential of losing more of that food, and it means eating more of that stuff that's in the can that you may not want to eat.
Reporter Marianne Murciano is at one of the emergency centers locally. Marianne, you have an update for us.
I think I heard a rushing in my ear here that didn't sound good.
Does that mean that Marianne... Bad audio?
All right.
Okay, we'll try to get back to her in just a
did you have more on your list, more questions?
I've got tons of questions here.
Right,
how about this one? Do people who work for utilities such as AT&T and FP&L report to work on Monday? You've been saying this all day long. A hurricane hits, folks. Nothing's going to be open. I mean, don't plan on going to work,
Well, I can tell you, though, that AT&T and Southern Bell and FP&L have an emergency plan. And if you're working for one of those companies and you're not part of that emergency plan, then don't worry about it. Because if you're part of their emergency plan, you know what your role is in that, and just don't worry about it. But nothing is going to be operating in South Florida tomorrow. Absolutely nothing will be operating here tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a day to, first of all, survive the first part of the day, and then to recover during the second part of the day. Let me see. We have a tip from a plumber. A plumber has told us to pass this tip on, and we're happy to do that. Most people have up to 100 gallons of water in their water heaters. This could be beneficial during a water shortage. We talked about this last night, and it was a wonderful idea that somebody had. First of all, you have to turn off the power to your water heater. So don't use any water out of your water heater until you turn off the power. What we recommend here is when the power fails later on tonight, is to go out and shut off the water to your house, shut off the electricity, as I said, except for one breaker, just so you know if the power comes back on again. And if you have gas, shut off the gas for the duration of the storm. Now, the reason for that is then you can figure out what to do after the storm. If your electricity isn't back on, there's nothing to do until that comes back on. With the gas, assuming that your house has survived and you don't have any disruption to your gas line, you can turn that back on right away. But your water, you're going to want to know if the water is safe to drink. If it isn't safe to drink, then initially don't turn that water back on, because that's going to contaminate the water that's in your pipes and in your hot water heater. And that hot water heater is a wonderful source of clean water, as long as you don't contaminate it with new water coming in from the water system. So
when you have contaminated water, though, isn't there a process by adding a chemical?
Well, yeah, you can do that, or boiling the water. But if you don't have gas, you're not going to be able to boil the water. And
well, what about, is it Clorox?
Clorox helps, but we don't want to encourage anybody, because we don't know what might be contaminated in the water. The Clorox might do it. If it's a bacteria, it might not, though. Yeah. Clorox is a way to take care of tap water that you know is good, but you might have sitting around for a while, just to be sure that nothing is growing in there that you don't want to be drinking. All right, anything else on your? I have another one here. Can the county have barriers? This is a fantastic question that you were talking about. Barricades that are lined up, construction barricades. I'll tell you, if I were living in a house, or if I had a business, and the county, or I don't care who it is, had a bunch of barricades in front of my property, those barricades wouldn't be there. It's 7:07 now. Those barricades would be gone about 7:10, I'd say. Because I don't care whose fault it is that those barricades are there. Somebody's going to have to move them, and I just don't think it's going to be the county or any sort of officialdom at this point that's going to do that. I would be out protecting my property any way I knew how. You
know, I was on the phone talking to a couple of the local hotels here, called the Hotel Intercontinental, called the Hilton, just to sort of find out what the status was. And of course, they've evacuated folks at those hotels. And we being about 4 blocks away from those places, I'm just curious about, from a personal standpoint, how secure do you feel in our building here? We're very close to where this thing possibly could come ashore.
Well, we're in an evacuation zone. We have a part of this building up in here that I feel as good about as I can feel. I'm not a structural engineer, but it is an all cement enclosure up in here. Our concern here in downtown Miami is these huge cranes over here. They're building the new prison, the new federal prison over here, and they have monstrous cranes up above that building, and we honestly don't know what's going to happen to those cranes. I don't know, because I know that our management here has been trying to determine what that means. If anyone that has anything to do with those cranes is listening to us here and has not been contacted and can do anything about those, we still have plenty of time for you to come here and take those things down, fold those things over, whatever can be done. I just don't know what can be done. We don't like those things up there. But what you want to be in is some place that's all concrete. And
we have concrete walls over here.
We have concrete walls, but we have a questionable roof over the room we're in right now. But up here we also have a concrete roof. And so we feel reasonably good about that. Take away those cranes out there that we're just not sure what the future is of those. Although, we're hopeful, obviously, that they're far enough away that it wouldn't be a problem.
I asked the question because obviously we have a lot of people in here, and we have loved ones out there as well who are wondering how secure we are. So
all we can say is that no one is secure. I mean, there is no safe place in South Florida tonight. Unless someone has a concrete box that they've built, there is no place that is absolutely safe. Because if we have winds come in here at 140 to 150 miles an hour, that exceeds the building codes for South Florida. Now, well, we said this before, but the building codes in South Florida are the best building codes there are. But these winds exceed the building codes. And assuming you've gone out and you've put the shutters on your house, you've done what you need to do, what we've told you to do to protect your house the best way you can, now you're talking about concern about your roof. Because where the roof, in spite of the fact that we have hurricane straps and everything else here, where the roof meets the top of the concrete block, that's where the two different kinds of building materials come together, and the wind can get up under there and provide lift, sucking on top because of the wind rushing over it, and things like that. So the concern is for roofs, and people with tile roofs, they feel a little safer, but they may indeed be a little safer, but I'll tell you, a tile is like a piece of tissue paper in 140-mile-an-hour wind. So we would be surprised in this kind of a storm, in the core part of the storm. Now, that's going to be a fairly narrow band that we're not sure where that's going to come in, but in that core part of the storm, we would be surprised to not see damage in virtually every structure in that core part of the storm.
I believe Governor Childs talked about anticipating billions of dollars worth of damage.
Well, I mean, in little old Charleston, South Carolina, that was hit with a Category 2 hurricane. Okay, the city of Charleston only experienced Category 2 conditions. Up the coast just a little bit, in that little eensy-tiny fishing village of McClellanville, South Carolina, were Category 4 conditions with a 20-foot storm surge. And then inland, on up through South Carolina, up to Charlotte, North Carolina, obviously they had more damage. But they had, as I recall the number, $3 billion worth of damage there. And in Charleston, there were very few, considering, you know, the number of buildings there, a very small percentage of the buildings were destroyed. There was some damage, there were some roofs taken off and things like that. But, you know, the big shopping centers and didn't fare very well because those buildings just don't hold up very well in strong winds. But we are talking, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars worth of damage.
And in spite of that, Brian, it's hard to imagine that there are actually folks out there who are not heeding the warnings and not doing the kinds of things that we've been talking about. Channel 4's Steve Abrams has a report now on Broward evacuations.
Judging by the beach strip in Fort Lauderdale late today, a lot of people are taking Hurricane Andrew seriously. When's the last time you saw the strip this empty on a Sunday afternoon? But then again, a lot of people have decided to ignore the evacuation order.
If it's my time to go, it's my time to go, and I truly believe that.
Yeah, but sometimes you can ask for it, too.
Well, that's true, but at the same time, we'll find out how devastating it is.
Most boaters, though, along the Intracoastal and neighboring canals have long since packed up and left. These canals along East Los Olas Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale are usually jam-packed with boats. You can see down here there are a lot of open slips, but there are still a lot of boats here. And of the boats that are here, the owners have looked for just about any way they can to fasten them down. This one is attached to trees on this side of the canal and attached to the dock on the other side. But in 150-mile-an-hour winds, who knows what's going to happen? This boat could end up out here on the street or 4 blocks to the west. Most of the tourists staying at the beachfront hotels were being bused to higher ground today. Some, however, like this couple, have decided to stay. I'm Steve Abrams from Channel 4.
I'm Hermann Hartung. I'm a tourist from Germany. Hello.
You can't be missing the fact that you're the only people here on the beach today.
Oh, it's very nice. I enjoy it very much. No people, and this is in August.
But you know why nobody's here?
Because Hurricane will coming, Hurricane Andrew, yes.
Well, how come you're still here?
Please?
Why are you still here?
Oh, I'm not afraid from the hurricane.
And these are the people you can always count on seeing on the beach when a hurricane's near, the surfers. Tell me about the waves.
They're small right now, but when that storm hits, baby, run for cover.
You're not running for high ground?
Not yet. The waves are small. Wait till later.
Yeah, but you're going to hang around for the hurricane?
I'm going to surf until the cops come and drag me out of the water.
In Fort Lauderdale, Steve Abrams, Channel 4 News.
Obviously, some people out there have not heeded the warnings and have not done some of the things that we've been suggesting that they do foolishly.
Let me say something about what that guy just said. The cops are not going to come drag him out of the water. The cops do not care if that person lives or dies at that point. The cops are out there to service and to serve people that are acting responsibly. The gentleman said that he was going to, his time might be up. His time might very well be up. I think we just need to, you know, tell it.
It's hard to imagine people have that mindset, though.
Right. Well, I think that maybe some people are thinking like that last guy who thinks that what we're doing here is we're going to come get you, we're going to let you act foolishly, and then we're going to come get you. But that is not the plan. I'm here to tell you, folks, that is not the plan. The way the system is set up, and this is absolutely the way it's going to work. No police officer, no fire department, no Coast Guard, no nobody is going to jeopardize their lives for people that decide too late to get out. You are on your own. And we have a system in place, and the system is working with buses in both counties rolling around and around and around and around to pick you up. You may have to do a little work to find them, but that is available to you. And that's what you've got to do. And you're the only one that's got to do it, and nobody's going to come get you if you don't.
At about 7:25, about 10 minutes from now, we're going to be going back to Orlando to get an update on the situation there as folks from South Florida head up that way and to perhaps what is going to be safer ground, we hope anyway. And right about 7:33, we are going to be going to a live news conference. It's a civil defense briefing. We understand it's a very important briefing, so you want to keep things tuned right here so you can catch the very latest on those two items.
All right, we have some questions here. I guess we can go down this. Someone in Kendall in zip code 33193 wants to know if they need to evacuate. The answer is no. 33193 is not an evacuation zone. Ives Dairy, 5 blocks west of Old Dixie Highway on the fringe of 33180. If you're west of Old Dixie Highway in 33180, no, you do not have to evacuate. Is FP&L turning off the power at midnight? I don't know the official answer to that. I would be very surprised. I suspect that they'll be turning off the power, though, in some areas not too long after midnight when conditions deteriorate. No, I don't think we need the maps here. Let's just try and zip through these questions. Tom, tell you what, why don't you sort through those and see if you have anything that we haven't covered recently in there, and we can get to that while I go down these last few here. Okay, the window question. Do I open a window on the lee side of the storm? Do I open a window at all? We covered this in some detail yesterday, so I'm going to do the short version. The answer is absolutely no. You want to preserve the integrity of your house, so you don't want to aggravate the problem. Houses don't explode during hurricanes because pressure builds up. That's not what happens. Maybe later we'll go into a more fuller explanation of what does happen, but that is not what happens. Leave no windows open. Leave no question about it. Close every single window in your house. Close them tight, and I can tell you, tightly closed windows are going to leak anyway, and I would go ahead and put towels around and be ready to deal with that, even if you have shutters on them. I don't want you dealing with it in the extreme part of the hurricane, because a little water is nothing compared to a broken window in your face. But go ahead and put towels out there just to help the water situation, but closed windows are going to leak.
I've got a question here from Coral Springs, and even though to some of you these questions might seem insignificant or silly, obviously if you've never experienced a hurricane, you want an answer to this. So here's the question. Screens around the back portion of your house, like a pool or your patio, how much protection, if any, do they offer?
They don't offer any protection at all, and the likelihood is they won't be there once we're through this, if you're getting the strongest part of the storm, or even anywhere near the strongest part of the storm. The screen companies are going to do a lot of business.
How about aluminum siding?
Aluminum siding, there's nothing wrong with aluminum siding if it's put on right. Any building that's built in South Florida to the building code is a pretty darn strong building, and the fact whether it has aluminum siding on it is irrelevant. The building structure itself is pretty strong. Now, the county manager and Kate Hale out of Dade County made a big thing about those people up there in Sevilla Place. If you recall that disastrous condominium complex up there off of Miami Gardens Drive in Northwest Dade, and they're trying to get those people to evacuate out of there. There are lots of shelters right nearby up there, so there's absolutely no excuse for you folks up there, if anybody is still up there, to get out, because you don't have to go more than a few blocks to shelters in Northwest Dade.
Here's another one. Some people wanting to know if they live in this area, Western and Bonaventure, should they evacuate? And here's
out by Weston. No evacuation zones in the. There's no evacuation in West Broward at all. All the evacuations are east of 95. So anybody living west of 95 does not have to worry. It's not an evacuation zone.
Some folks obviously out there are worried about their pets, and we've got some videotape of another story here, this one regarding horses. Horse owners that are worried about the horses' safety during Hurricane Andrew. They loaded them up and headed to Tropical Park in Southwest Dade, and we have some pictures to show you, we understand, of this. 400 cement stalls have been leased out at the old racetrack by the Dade County Parks and Recreation Department. Already a couple hundred horses have arrived with their owners, hopeful this is the safest place for their animals to be during the hurricane.
In fact, talking about animals, let's listen.
The safety of all the horses, and we were wondering if they were going to be safe where we were, and we thought they might get hurt or lose, something drastic happened to them.
Got to hearing about the storm being a maybe Category 5, and I said, oh my God, I said, we can't leave them here. I'm not chancing it. And so we loaded them up and brought him down.
Talk about where you normally keep your horses varied to what kind of structure this is.
Well, this is cement. This is blocks, and I usually keep them in wood. My stalls are made out of wood, and I was afraid that, the roof might come off and hurt one of my animals.
They're just going to watch them for us, and we're going to go back home. Me and my dad might stay here with them, so we have no idea what we're going to do.
Are you worried about that?
I don't want to stay here. Let's put it that way.
But you don't mind your horse staying here?
No.
Do you think this is safe enough for her?
Yeah, because she likes it here and everything. Because we always come here for horse shows and everything with her, so she's used to it.
Did you notice the overhang on that roof? It seemed to be like, I don't know, 8 feet out or something like that. Does that make a difference?
Yeah, actually, the flatter the roof is, the worse off you are. The best kind of roof you can have on a house is called a gabled roof. A gabled, is it gabled roof? Now I'm kind of losing my, whatever it is. It's the kind, what is it called? It slopes down in the front and on the sides. You know what I mean? Kind of goes up to a point in the middle. That aerodynamically is the best kind of roof you can have. And long overhangs where anything that the wind has to rush around a tight corner, that's where you get more lift. We're talking about animals there. Interestingly, Brian Allen just brought in to me word that Adopt-A-Pet, which is in South Dade in the evacuation zone there, was able to get all of their animals temporarily adopted. So that's wonderful news. And someone else has called in to our help center with a question about what is being done for the animals at the zoo. I haven't heard anything. I mean, if we want to reassure anybody and someone from Metro Zoo wants to give us a call and let us know, but I know Ron McGill and those folks down there have a hurricane plan. They are not, however, in an evacuation zone. They are not too far from an evacuation zone, but they are not in the zone. Let me see. What else do we have here? We have here's another question. Should someone be concerned about a 3-ton air conditioning unit on their roof? Well, I think I would be more concerned with it blowing off the roof, if anything. If the concern is it going through the roof, no, I would not worry about that. I think you probably have other things to worry about more.
Brian, I understand that we just got this information that all access to Miami Beach has been shut off.
Right, as of 7 o'clock was the word we had, yeah.
That's in effect now, so all access to Miami Beach has been shut off.
I wonder if we can, in the newsroom, if we can find out. Dade County, Metro Dade Police, I don't know, you may have been on the way in when this was going on, actually sent us a fax here and said that they were going to shut off access to all evacuation areas at 1 p.m. But then they didn't do that, and now Miami Beach has happened at 7 p.m. Our other evacuation area is now cut off. If someone could find that out for us, that would be good.
We'll certainly pass it along. Right now, Ed Odell is standing by, we understand, on the phone in Nassau to give us an update. What's the situation there right now? Have things picked up, Ed?
Hurricane Andrew is here in a vengeance, 75, 80-mile-an-hour winds. I'm standing in a phone booth under the bridge leading to Paradise Island, and Tom, I won't be here long. The wind is about to blow these booths over. My cameraman Rudy Marsh and I were on West Bay Road just a minute ago. A tree collapsed in front of us and almost trapped us on the outside of town. We have been driving around. There are numerous car accidents with people out here viewing what's going on. They should not be. I'm standing out here looking at boats. I just saw a houseboat on its side headed down the river at about 25 knots. The wind is blowing. Things are toppling. There's flooding on the highways. It is a mess over here at this point in time.
Any word right now on injuries? Have you ever been able to assess whether or not anybody's been hurt?
I went to the Red Cross office here in Nassau prior to this hitting Nassau. They were raising the outer islands, and they said they had no reports at this time. However, communications are just totally out at this point. I would not rely on any of the communications that we're getting. At this point, we have absolutely no idea, but we have heard of none. There were earlier reports of 4 deaths on the outer islands. The Red Cross says that they are by radio communications. They said they have no indication of that. However, as this storm progresses here in Nassau, people are actually walking out on the streets. People are driving around with their children in the car, their power lines down. I would not be surprised if we don't have a few tragedies before this is over.
All right, Ed, just make sure you get to a place of safety.
Why don't we take a look? We can actually see Nassau on our Miami radar here. If we can look at the radar, we can give him an idea of exactly where he stands.
Know what's happening there.
All right, hang on just a second with us, Ed, if we can get the radar up on the screen here.
There it is.
All right, there you see, and what we're seeing there, again, we're looking a long way out, 120 miles out, but we're seeing the band. So, Ed, what you're going to get there is you are on the south side of the eye, clearly, and you're going to get surges of energy as this thing goes by, is what you can expect. So it may actually fall off a little bit, but that doesn't mean that it's over. It looks like that there's multiple eye walls there. You're going to be on the south side. You probably will not see the eye. You're probably just going to stay in some pretty strong west winds. What direction is the wind there now, Ed? Can you tell? Do you have any feel for that?
The wind seems to be coming from the west.
Say it again, please, Ed.
From the west.
Wind
From the
seems
west?
to be coming from the
Right,
west.
okay.
And
So-
it would be circling around, I guess.
Right, well, clearly then the eye is apparently just north of you.
They predicted, the Bahamian Weather Service predicted that the eye would be directly north of New Providence Island and Nassau at 8 p.m. So it should be right off of us at this point.
Right, so, and according to our radar, it is just the center of the eye is probably another 10 minutes or so from going by. All right, Ed, thank you very much. Go find a safe spot.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Obviously a precursor to perhaps what we can expect here. Right now, I understand that we have reporter Stephen Stock standing by in Orlando to give us an update on people heading from South Florida up there to try to escape Andrew's path. Stephen, are you with us?
Yes, I am. I'm here in Seminole County at Lyman High. This is one of several centers. There's 6 or 7 centers throughout Orange County and Seminole County, all for people coming out of South Florida who want to get a place to stay overnight or for the next couple of days. In fact, just talking to the Orange County authorities a few minutes ago, they say they expect at least 300,000 people to descend on Orange County and Seminole County over the next couple of hours. And I can tell you that all the motel rooms and hotel rooms between here and Gainesville have been booked. They're full. And emergency officials are telling us that if you want a room, you better go to Jacksonville or be prepared even to go into South Georgia. Now, we're here where they're expecting as many as 800 people. We've had a trickle of a few people coming up the highway from Fort Lauderdale and Miami. In fact, with me is Vinny Ruhl from Fort Lauderdale. Vinny, you just got here. How was the trip, and why did you decide to leave?
Well, the trip was quite boring because all the time I had to stop and ask the hotels, and they had no vacancy. So this was very boring. And
were you worried? Why did you get out of town? Because they told you the hurricane might hit?
Yeah, of course. But my friends, they first refused to go. But I think in the meantime, they will have gone probably to a shelter too, because they are in the core, in the middle of the center of where the...
What could be the hurricane? That's right.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about tonight. You're going to stay here tonight, then you plan to go further up north, or are you going to stay here?
No. If you leave me, if I can stay here for tonight, it's fine.
Okay, thank you, Vinny. Several people, and of course, as I told you, the 800 people here, as many as 300,000 people expected to be in the Orlando area before the evening's over. Back to you.
All right, Stephen Stock reporting for us tonight from Orlando. Thanks for that report. A couple of quick things I want to pass on to you. Just been handed this, and if this is indeed true, there's no word except unconscionable for this. We understand that there is at least one lumber store that is charging $25 for plywood sheets and also $25 for 6-volt batteries. This is not the time to be gouging the public in the face of a hurricane as devastating, potentially devastating as Andrew. Another thing I'd like to pass on to you is this bit of information. We have some warnings that Andrew could be stronger than Hurricane Hugo, perhaps a little bit. That hurricane left 85 people dead and caused $5.9 billion in damage as it swept through the Caribbean and the Carolinas in 1989. So again, we are talking about a storm that's heading our way that is potentially devastating. And we told you a little bit earlier that we're going to be going to a meeting that is very important. It is the Civil Defense briefing. And we hit that window in about 20 seconds.
This is the Dade County now Emergency Operations Center. Every half hour they come on with a statement. Normally they don't tell us anything new, but we should go ahead and join them anyway. And it's, by the way, at 28 on our clock here. We've learned that their clock is 2 seconds off. All right. So here they come right now. 2, 1, go.
Welcome to our 7:30 media briefing. My name is Kim Miller. I'm with the Metro Dade Communications Department, and we'll give you some updated information. Right now, all bridges are locked down, including the Miami River. We have crews out, but the Public Works Department is out and ready and alert. The Rickenbacker Causeway, the gates are open. There are no tolls to worry about, and there's unrestricted traffic right now on the Rickenbacker. All trash and recycling centers are now closed. So if people have trash that they have not taken to those centers, they should secure it and lock it down at their house or take it into their garages, but do not leave it out front. There's no place for it to go. And we have some information as far as updates on the shelters. There's some new shelters that have either reached or are near capacity, and we are urging people not to go to those centers if at all possible. They include Miami Edison Senior High School, Highland Oaks Middle School, Citrus Grove Elementary School, Auburndale Elementary School, and Lake Stevens Elementary School. According to our Red Cross officials, they can handle 70,000 people, evacuees in these centers. Right now we are nearing 20,000. Traffic has gotten much more brisk at the centers, so if you are planning to evacuate, we strongly suggest that you do it now. I will be introducing now Kate Hale, the Director of Emergency Management, to give you a little bit more information. Kate?
Well, as we get into the final phase of the evacuation prior to the arrival of tropical storm force winds and hurricane force winds, which are expected late this evening with the hurricane force winds coming onshore sometime in the morning hours, we unfortunately are at the point in the evacuation that was inevitable. We have completely exhausted our resources here and are going to be unable to accept any other requests for transportation of any sort. Those people who are on bus pickup points, that will maintain, but those people who've been calling in to the hurricane hotline requesting assistance in evacuating, we simply are going to have all we can do to take care of those people that we currently have on file or who have called in over the last 24 hours and requested assistance. I can guarantee you this is the one point the county never wanted to have to get to, but unfortunately we are totally dependent on our Metro vehicles. The school board has released its vehicles, so we've got what we've got left to work with, and that's it, and we are not going to be able to accept any more registrations, which means wherever you are, you need to do the best you can to batten down, get into an interior room, and be ready to ride out the storm there. Unfortunately, we're just not going to be able to offer that kind of evacuation, special evacuation assistance after this point. Any questions?
Hello, I'm Danny Alvarez, Assistant Director of the Metro-Dade Transit Agency. As it was previously announced, at 6 p.m. we shut down the Metro Mover operations in downtown Miami. At 7 o'clock, there was a train leaving Okeechobee Road and another one at Dayland South. Those two trains are about reaching the end of the line right now, and at that point, Metro Rail will be shut down. The Sunday schedule of Metro Bus will be coming to an end at 8 p.m., and that is only for regular scheduled Metro Bus service. Those people waiting at the predetermined pickup points to be taken to shelters, the buses will continue to run as long as the weather permits. We will continue throughout the evening, and we will get as many people out to the evacuation shelters as the weather permits. As far as the announcement made, all of the vehicles that have been at our disposal to take people places have all been booked up, and unfortunately we cannot take any more reservations at this point for people who wish to evacuate. Thank you. And now I'd like to turn it over to Lieutenant Tharp of the Florida Highway Patrol.
Thank you. Just briefly, right now we have information that all the traffic heading southbound to the Keys has been completely cut off. The northbound traffic is very light. All the causeways to the beaches have been closed, and traffic is extremely slow from northbound Miami to West Palm Beach out of the Turnpike and I-95.
Briefly, I'm Armando Vidal, Deputy Director, Dade County Public Works. Our crews have been already positioned and the equipment has been dispersed, ready to respond tomorrow. There is really no change from our last report to you all.
In closing, I'd like to add one more thing, and that is an appeal for medical volunteers to go to the public shelters. We have large numbers of people in the public shelters, and unfortunately some of the organizations which committed to provide that medical support in the public shelters have not honored that commitment. So we are seriously in need of medical personnel to volunteer in the public shelters. This is an opportunity for you to really serve your community in a very, very needed way. So please, if you have those kind of skills and you can get to one of our public shelters, it would be extremely appreciated. Thank you.
Questions?
What is?
Thank you very much.
Okay, let me reemphasize that Broward County has asked for the same thing, is for medical personnel in the public shelters, because I guess a lot of the elderly folks that have medical needs are ending up in the public shelter because they don't have any place else to go, and they've been using the bus system to get there. And now they're ending up, not only do they need medical help, they also need bread and water in the public shelters for whatever reason, which isn't clear to me, but I guess doesn't make any difference why. They are short of bread and water and basic canned goods in the public shelters.
Right. Tom Randalls is taking a break. I'm Kelly Craig, and we're going to be doing shifts around the clock here, riding this thing out. Tell us, you told us back in June you've got to be ready, and now, if anything comes out of this, people are going to take this seriously.
Well, we hope people are going to take this seriously. I mean, after this tomorrow, a lot of people, I guess, are going to take this seriously. What's going to happen here, though, is that we're going to have this intense core part of the storm. It's a very small hurricane compared to Hurricane Hugo, for instance, which was somewhat larger, compared to the 1926 storm that devastated South Florida, from all the way from Homestead to Deerfield Beach.
But
this is smaller.
Right.
But the core of it that is intense is more intense than either of those storms. It's stronger than either Hugo or the 1926 storm. So it's going to do major, beyond major, devastating. It'll be devastating action in the part of South Florida, in Dade or Broward County, where that core is going to affect. In fact, it's not even, the core is not as big as either county. So it's going to affect a corridor mainly. Not that there's not going to be any damage elsewhere, there will be, but where we're going to see the biggest, most devastating action is going to be narrow, and I guess I'm a little afraid that people might think, oh, I rode that out, but it might have missed them, the most intense part of the storm.
How likely is it that this storm will come over the state, and we know that it loses power after it hits landfall, but what are the chances that it moves across us and goes into the Gulf?
Well, it's expected to go into the Gulf.
Yeah.
Hurricane warnings are in effect now for the west coast of Florida, as a matter of fact. The storm is of sufficient size and sufficient strength that as it comes across South Florida, there's water in the Everglades. It still has a source of warm water, still has a source of energy there. This is going to be a hurricane for somebody on the Gulf Coast. Honestly, I still haven't. Brian Allen, if you can hear me, maybe just for everyone's information, you could let me know, do a little tracking map for me there, and so that we can pass that along, where the projection is for the storm to go. I did read they're uncertain, obviously, because it's into the future. Longer in the future is the more uncertain they are.
For those folks who just might be tuning in after having prepared their homes, they've just reached a shelter, they've turned the television on, when do we expect it to arrive here?
Well, okay, it depends on what it is. We expect the weather, we're still using midnight as a good time to expect the weather to deteriorate. Now that may actually happen a little bit after midnight, although we're getting reports out there of some very gusty winds. If you want to look at the radar, we look at the radar screen, we had a little squall line come through, and there you see the remnants of it there just from the MIA up to the FTL. And because we're using the Palm Beach radar, it's blanked out in Palm Beach, but it does go right on through there. So that's an outer squall line of the system, and we had some pretty strong wind gusts with that squall line that came through. As a matter of fact, did a little damage to one of our remote systems on One Biscayne Tower in downtown Miami here. Now, if you look over there by the NAS,
right,
I believe that is the eye of the storm that we're seeing there, right above the S. You see that hook? We're not seeing the backside of the eye, because the thunderstorms are so intense on the front side that they're essentially blocking the radar beam from seeing the backside. But right now, it appears that the eye of the storm, which is only 9 miles across, the clear part of this system is only 9 miles across, is just north of Nassau, and you can make out, see the bands kind of coming around, but that line that goes, there's a blob right there north of Nassau, and then there's sort of a half of a band in front of that. That's going to be a very intense squall line when that comes in, and that area, that blob right above the NAS there, that is the intense part of this hurricane, and it's now affecting the southern end of Great Abaco there, and it looks like most of it is going to miss Grand Bahama. But I think you can clearly see that if that goes due west, that we're talking about this storm hitting, the intense part of the storm hitting in Dade or Broward County, remembering that there may still be a little fluctuation up or down as the storm comes west. So, I mean, the storm is less than 200 miles away now, maybe 185, 190 miles away. So to complete the answer to the question, the strong bands where the weather conditions would deteriorate to the point where you might, if you were trying to drive, have a tree fall down in front of you or something like that, we anticipate to be in the midnight time frame, maybe a little after midnight, and then that core, strongest part of the storm around sunup at 7 a.m., and then the whole thing gone maybe by noon, maybe by 1 p.m., and we expect sunshine here tomorrow afternoon.
But that does not by any means that we're going to be out of the woods. I mean,
No.
certainly, you talked about power supplies down, water will likely be out.
Well, I mean, the unfortunate thing, as it turned out, it hasn't turned out to be as big a problem as it was supposed to be, because either not people aren't evacuating or something. I don't know what is going on out there that we're not having massive crowds evacuating. I don't know whether people aren't evacuating or they just did it so efficiently that we just can't believe it. But in any case, we were very concerned about only having this one day to get people evacuated. Well, something different has happened, because all the projections were it was going to take more than 12 hours, more like it was going to take 24 hours to get people evacuated. And since we didn't start till this morning, there was a desperate concern it wasn't going to be possible. Well, either people aren't doing it or it is possible, one or the other, and we'll assess that afterward. But after the storm, the timing is really not too bad, because we're going to have time the same day as the storm to evaluate where we are, as opposed to it being night when this storm is over. This storm is going to be over with 6 hours probably of good daylight left for the governmental agencies to get out and assess where we stand, go into all the evacuated areas, position their National Guard or however they're going to police them, and then they have to get the inspectors. And this is the long process, and this is what people need to anticipate. There's a whole inspection process, because if you have a bunch of, along the coast in that core area, we're going to expect every building to have significant damage. And those buildings are not going to be allowed to be re-inhabited until inspectors have gone in to determine that it's not dangerous to go in there, because it would just be silly to send people back to their property, regardless of the state it's in, if they could be injured or killed by going into a building that was on the edge of collapse.
So needless to say, folks are going to be in the shelters for quite a long time.
Right, some people are going to be, and other people will probably be allowed to go out, because it's a small storm. There will be parts of South Florida that in evacuation zones where there might be minor damage, the governmental agencies, whoever is going to do this assessment, will go in and say, that neighborhood looks pretty good, let's let the people back in there, and let's go on and deal with the ones that are in much worse shape.
Earlier, you and Tom were talking about the animals in Metro Zoo and their safety. We understand that Ron McGill, the curator of Metro Zoo, is on the phone. Ron, are you with us?
Sure am. How you doing?
Fine. We're fine. Tell us about what's going on at the zoo. What preparations have you made?
Well, basically, our main preparations dealt with just taking all the wheelbarrows and shovels and rakes, anything that can be a projectile, taking it off and put into a safe area. That was our main concern. Most of the animals have in their areas a very good security night house, which is very, very well built and can sustain this type of storm. Those animals go in there every evening, so it's not a real problem to get them in there. Our main concern regarding the animals were the birds. We had to go out and catch the flamingos up today. Even though they have their wings clipped and normally can fly, when you get a 100-mile-an-hour gust of wind, you get a problem. So we had to catch up the flamingos, and they are all now in the public bathrooms throughout Metro Zoo, along with several other birds. We have a concern, of course, with the aviary. Our netting has been tested in winds of over 150 miles an hour, but it still is a major concern. We have a lot of large trees and plants throughout the aviary, so this is something that is a concern to us. Of course, we also have a couple of animals that are very, very close to term as far as their pregnancy goes, and it's been our experience in the past when we've had a major storm that those animals drop, or they give birth at this time. So our concern is also that we don't want anything very rare or valuable giving birth in the middle of a very wet and windy storm.
Tell us about staff. Is some of your staff going to be staying there?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I know the general curator will be staying there overnight, basically because he's living in an evacuation zone and he just happens to have the zoo. And also a couple of the zoological supervisors. There will be staff out there throughout the night. The main effort was done throughout the day and yesterday and days even previous. I mean, we've been setting up for this for a while and cutting down limbs and getting things out of the way. Again, the main concern was projectiles. Most of the big animals, the zebras, the giraffes and such, they'll just be turned out onto the paddock and they'll ride out the storm very well. We just want to protect them from projectiles. The other main concern is because, as you may be familiar, we have water moats that keep a lot of the animals in, such as the tigers and lions when they're out on exhibit. Those water moats are defined by our water table. And during David, a few years back, that water table got so high we had to close the zoo and keep those animals in because of the fact they'd swim right out.
Yeah, Ron, I was going to ask you about what has happened in hurricanes past. What kind of damage did the zoo sustain and injury to animals?
Well, actually Metro Zoo came about mainly because of the hurricane threat. You may not be familiar, but the predecessor to Metro Zoo was Crandon Park Zoo on Key Biscayne. And Crandon Park, we did have some hurricanes go through there, some major ones that that caused massive deaths and loss of animals due to flooding and drowning.
Yeah, Ron, it's Brian Norcross. Hurricane Betsy, I think, was really the impetus to close Crandon Park Zoo, was it not?
That's
1965.
exactly right, Brian. Yeah, we discussed that a couple of times when you've been out. That that was the main, the main influx for us to go out there and get Metro Zoo to protect these animals from this type of storm surge. So the hurricane right now, Metro Zoo is fortunately located on a very high piece of land, has very good drainage, but as you may assume, we're probably going to be closed for a few days, just recovering and making sure it's safe for the animals to go back out and exhibit.
Yeah, what kind of preparations, Ron, in terms of extra food and water for these animals? Do you always have that stockpiled?
We do have a very good stockpile of food. We have a huge kitchen, huge walk-in freezers and refrigerators. The hay was all restocked. We restocked the gas in all the vehicles. Everything was really, it's very well planned ahead. Through Metro-Dade County, we have a very effective hurricane program that we follow very efficiently. And, we were in there first thing in the morning just following through with all the plans. And again, there's only so many things you can predict. But like, Brian's been saying all day, you have to assume the worst. And that's what we've been doing, just making sure that we get, again, our main concern is anything that can fly around.
All right, Ron McGill, you're a trooper. Take care of those animals. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay. Brian.
Well, this is what Kate Hale was saying, and I guess we just can't reinforce what she had said enough, that the county never wanted to be in this position of a lady that called us in our help center who takes care of two elderly people, one in a wheelchair. She lives on Collins Avenue in Miami Beach in a penthouse. She needs help evacuating, and obviously she didn't do what she needed to do ahead of time and register with the county, because they would have gone out and done everything necessary to help her and get these people out. And we have her name and her phone number, and she does not know what to do. And honestly, we don't have any good solution for her, short of her trying to hire a limousine, any other way to get somebody over there now while the weather conditions are still tolerable to get these people out. So
this is Miami Beach,
This is Miami Beach, and it's clearly an evacuation zone. And why this lady was never, maybe just never knew. Whatever the reason is, it's not any reason to even talk about it now. I don't know how to pronounce this. Adalina, if you're listening and we're talking to you, all I can suggest to you, if anybody has any other suggestions, call our help center, but all I can suggest to you is you try and find a taxi cab, you try and find a limousine service, or somebody that can come over and help you get those folks in the car with those wheelchairs and get them on. At least it's not someone in a stretcher that might be attached to some machine.
Mm-hmm.
If this is just elderly people that are confined to a wheelchair, they can be lifted up and usually put in the car.
Right.
So other than that, ma'am, we don't really have an answer for you and other people in that same situation.
And some people might assume that one good shelter would be to go to a hospital. That is not the case.
Right.
Most of the major hospitals are saying that we will only take patients on an emergency basis, women who are in their last trimester of pregnancy or who are overdue.
Or people that have been sent there by their doctor. Anybody that is somebody that's on a kidney dialysis machine, or somebody that has a serious medical problem, needs constant medical care. If they haven't done it now, I suspect it's too late, but they could have registered with the doctor and had the doctor assign them there, and maybe somehow that could still be done, but some people are being assigned to hospitals, but only that need that sort of care. The other thing, and then I'm going to leave you here for a few minutes and go deal with my voice and let Brian Allen step in here. HRS would like to announce that they will be closed for until further notice. HRS closing until further notice. So they want us to tell the police that they should take the children to shelters, not HRS. You would think that they would communicate that directly to the police, so I hope that that's accurate information. But if the police, for some reason, need to deal with HRS, I suggest you call, and if the phone is not answered, that is the reality, that you need to take any children to shelter. So let me turn it over to you. I hear Metro Traffic is waiting.
Yes, Joe Brennan, go ahead. Tell us about the evacuation routes, please.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Also, on a note of what you were just talking about a minute ago, the people out on Miami Beach, I just heard from another source, Miami Beach Police and Fire possibly offering some rides out if you call 673-7945 for people that are having a hard time getting out, disabled people and whatnot. Once again, call 673-7945. I believe that's Miami Police and Fire, Miami Beach Police and Fire. Also, it looks like most of the travel now on the evacuation routes, mostly in the northern Broward, Palm Beach area, trying to head out of Palm Beach County getting to be a bear, quite frankly. Southbound 95, another accident this time approaching Glades Road in Boca Raton. Most of the travel, of course, headed northbound, though. Southbound 95 approaching 6th Avenue, another collision. Also, apparently a trooper involved in a collision northbound 95 approaching Forest Hill Boulevard. That will clog it up even further. And another now southbound 95 in Boca, just south of Yamato Road. So those routes not too great right now. And also just got a report of a collision in Dade County, northbound 874 at Bird Road, the Don Shula Expressway, where it meets up with the Palmetto. Of course, a major link out of South Dade County, and also a report of an object in the road northbound on the Palmetto at Southwest 38th Street in that same vicinity. So a few obstacles to look out for still. The Turnpike extension in Dade County is doing a little better than it was before, same for I-95. And that's a look at traffic. Back to you.
Joe, before you go, what about Tamiami Trail, Alligator Alley?
Those roads don't have any reports on them. We did have some delays out there earlier, pretty heavy ones at that.
Okay. All right. Joe Brennan, thanks very much for that update. We want to take a picture now of our live Grove cam. This is the camera in Coconut Grove looking out. As you can see, dusk is upon us. Brian Allen.
Dusk is upon us.
And
what we're waiting for now is dawn. And what happens at dawn as Andrew makes his way here into Dade and Broward County. We want to bring you up to date on a couple of things. We've just gotten the brand new 8 o'clock advisory in. This is what is going on. This is what we call an intermediate advisory. The big advisories come at 5 and 11 o'clock, and because of what we're in right now, we get them every 3 hours. Latitude still holding the same, 25 north degrees. So therefore, Andrew is still on that direct west track, not really varying from that whatsoever. The longitude now 77.3 west. That puts it about 185 miles now east of Miami, Florida. The pressure is still holding it same at 923 millibars. You can transfer that over to 27.26 inches of mercury there on your barometer. Winds just down slightly to 145 miles per hour, but that's again because the eye of the hurricane wobbling, oscillating a little bit.
What about this double eye we've been talking about? Is it still a double eye?
Yeah, if we can, do we have the radar shot? We're going to take a look at the radar and we'll just kind of show you what we were talking about. Because there you can see right there the one core around Nassau and then the one head of it. It's a little bit of a double eye. It's trying to find itself. And with that oscillating that's going, on, it's not really going through some changes. It's still maintaining its same basic strength. It's just that it's just getting with itself. So we'll see this continue. It could go up, it could go down. As far as a major drop, that really is not expected as far as Andrew. So again, it's now 185 miles to the east of Miami and still moving to us at the west at 16 miles per hour.
I understand there's some emergency telephone numbers we want to pass along to you.
Yeah.
If we could take a look at some of those. Again, the emergency hotlines, if you have some questions, in Dade, the number is 595-6661, 596-8735. In Broward, 357-8454. In Monroe County, 1-800-427-8340. And we've been getting some of the questions here in our Channel 4 Help Center. And, you know, Brian, people are sort of bashful to ask questions, especially those who have never been through a hurricane before. You know, questions like, there's construction next to my home. What about the projectiles?
Exactly. Don't be shy to ask questions. We're here to help. That's one of the reasons we're here, is to keep you posted on what Andrew is doing and also to help you get into those evacuation shelters, because what we've been seeing all day, people, it doesn't seem like, have really been heeding this warning
especially in Broward.
Strongly. Yeah, especially in Broward. I do not know. Do you have the latest figures?
I don't have the latest figures. All I can tell you is only a fraction of the amount of people who they expected to come into the shelters have actually done so.
I think the only figure I heard that was a while ago was from Steve Abrams. That was in the afternoon. And they said like 3,000 and expected 100,000 people on the way. Okay, let me just show you what we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
That's one of the bands coming in now off of Andrew. You can see the squally weather. You've got the break in the middle. If we can actually pull that back out a little bit, Gary, instead of pulling in, because I want to show you there. Where you see the black that almost looks like the curtains hanging, those are where the squall lines are at, and the heavy rain coming down. You've got the break in the middle. That's that band, because the rain doesn't necessarily travel uniformly in a line. You get spotty rain in some of these early bands on their way in right there. Very actually pretty picture out there tonight of the leading edge of Andrew.
Again, folks who have not been through one of these hurricanes before, and we have to re-emphasize that this is going to be one of the strongest, that if not the strongest, that has ever hit a metropolitan area. People get confused when they're in the eye. They think it's over.
Oh, never. I mean, we're looking at a couple of hours on each side of the eye. You'll get some calm. You're going to hear a lot of loud noise. You're going to hear your house doing things and the shelter doing things. People who've been through tornadoes have heard the expression that it sounds like 100 freight trains or locomotives just coming at you. That's going to be the same sound, but it's going to be sustained and just going and going. Then all of a sudden it's just going to end.
Tell me about, you said the size. This one is so much smaller, but
it
more
is
intense.
Smaller. Let me see here if we've got it on the advisory as to what size the eye was. Earlier it was about 9 miles, statute miles, not nautical miles. We don't have it on there. But it's got a very small eye. It's a very small, compact storm. It's not actually taking up a lot of the available space it has in the atmosphere, whereas Hugo, when you looked at Hugo on the satellite imagery, it was massive and just overpowering. I mean, you just looked at it and went, this is something. Andrew still looks very impressive, but it's a much smaller storm. And that's the good news, because it'll be in and out of here relatively quickly. And again, it does not look like it's packing a lot of rain with it. We do see some storms sometimes 15, 20 inches of rain. This one maybe 8 to 10 inches, because it's going to come on through here pretty quickly.
A lot of people are wondering why, unlike other hurricanes past, this one did not move up the Florida coast. I mean, it just went westward 2 days ago.
Exactly. We were watching some different things in the upper atmosphere going on. We have what we call a Bermuda high. It's generally in place. It finally came into place. So what that does is, if you take this, we'll say that's the area of high pressure, okay? The winds around a high circulate clockwise. So if you've got Florida here and the wind coming down this way over top of Florida, it's going to deflect anything that's moving this way. And as it starts to build in behind, it's going to keep that trapped in there and steer it more in a west or a southwest motion. But this just sort of leveled out and allowed Andrew just to hang right on that westerly plain. If the high had built in someplace else, or we had another trough that came through, it could have just deflected Andrew right up the east coast or on right back around to the Atlantic, like we saw a couple of storms do back in 1990.
You talked about when you really feel the emphasis of this storm. It sounds like freight trains.
Oh, definitely.
What should folks do who are not in an evacuation zone? They boarded up their homes. They're inside the homes. We've had a lot of questions. Do I stay on the first floor? Do I stay on the second? What do I do? Where do I go in my home? Inside your home, you want to find a room in the middle of the house. We cannot overemphasize that enough. If you do not have that, and you do have, say, your bedroom with only 1 or 2 windows, and you have those boarded up, take the mattress and the box springs off the bed and just go ahead and lay them across the window as well. And just keep yourself in one central area, or you can keep yourself in a central hallway. But you want something that's concrete, structurally reinforced, at least on 2 sides. Because if you've just got one exterior and you happen to catch wind on one, that could buckle the wall. So you want to be in the most secure concrete room you can find in your home or your apartment building. Earlier we were talking about stairwells are always concreted in. But, you know, that becomes a thing of whether or not you want to spend, 10 to 12 hours in a stairwell. Right. We want to reemphasize also that we also are on the radio. We are simulcasting with our sister radio station Y100, 100.7 FM on your dial. So if you are out of your home in a shelter and you have to be away from a television at any time, please tune in to 100.7 Y100. We are getting ready to go back to the Hurricane Center in Coral Gables. Bob Sheets is going to give us his hourly updates. Right. He's going to give us the 8 o'clock advisory that we already gave out. We always take him now to do this. The 11 o'clock advisory, we're waiting on that then. That's going to give us a little bit better idea of what we're looking at. Still looking around the 7 a.m., maybe possibly 8 a.m., the dawn hour for landfall for Andrew. And it really does not look like anything is going to be able to stop Andrew from coming into Dade and Broward County. And as Brian said, by midnight we should be starting to feel it. Midnight we're going to start to feel it, and then as we get past 2 and 3 in the morning, that's when things are really going to get active, and you're going to know that we're really going through something. All right, let's go to Bob Sheets right now for his update. Bob?
Good evening. Hurricane Andrew continues on its path towards the southeast Florida coast at this hour. The center of the hurricane is expected to cross the Dade-Broward area sometime between 6 and 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Winds are now about 145 miles per hour and expected to maintain near that strength as it crosses the coast. I'm Bob Sheets from National Hurricane Center in Coral Gables, Florida.
Okay, so there just once again the latest on Andrew. Winds at 145, but that's because the eye doing a little bit of wobbling out there. Still a major Category 4 hurricane.
And Category 5 is 155?
Is 155. Only 2 of those have ever struck the United States, but already Andrew is more intense than Hugo was. Not larger as far as the area it's taking up, but just its power that it's packing. It's more intense than Hugo was back in 1989.
Wind speed. We have Ed Odell in the Bahamas, and he talked a little bit about what's going on there, and people there still aren't taking it seriously. I mean, they're already feeling the effects, and people are out in the cars and out in the street.
Last year, Rob Pierce and I traveled to Freeport for Hurricane Bob, and I could not believe just the very laid-back attitude from the Weather Service on down to people in the streets. Nobody took this seriously as far as what was going on. And it seems that some of the people here in Dade and Broward County have, I shouldn't say that we've been, well, I guess we can say we've been lax because it has been so long that you just kind of sit there and say, well, it hasn't happened and it's beared down on us before and it's not going to happen this time. Well, it is for real, and hopefully this is going to be a very valuable, and unfortunately it looks like it's going to be a very costly learning session for those of us here in Dade and Broward County and also the Keys and Palm Beach.
Talk a little bit about what we can expect after the storm itself, after the storm clears. As Brian Norcross said a little while ago, we can expect to see daylight, a little bit of daylight tomorrow after this thing passes. What will happen?
Definitely as it passes, but I want to go back to one thing that we touched on before we gave out the emergency numbers. We're talking about being in the eye of the hurricane.
Right.
Everything is calm, it's quiet. You'll see possibly some sunlight in there because basically there's nothing in the middle of the eye except spinning air on the inside. Then all of a sudden you're going to get the kick as the second wall starts to make its way through. So just because it sounds like all is clear at around 7, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, maybe even 8:30, do not start to venture outside because that is just temporarily the eye. And if the eye stays this small, it's going to be real quick as the eye passes through because then the back end, and then we go through this whole process all over again as we get hit one more time on the backside of the hurricane.
Talk about what a storm surge is and how that can affect us.
Okay, the storm surge, what we have is, if you look at the water here as we come in toward, say, Miami Beach, okay, you have all the energy coming in with Andrew, ahead of Andrew, okay, and as Andrew approaches, it keeps pushing water ahead of it, walls of water, and then you get the waves. Well, all this starts to run up a slope, and then you still have the waves coming up this slope as the water from Andrew is coming on up. So then all of a sudden you get this giant wall that just starts coming over. Now the big problem we're looking at this morning is for Biscayne Bay because Biscayne Bay is shallower. You're going to have some of the pressure come down into Biscayne Bay. That's going to lift water and then push that inland. We're talking possibly storm surge heights in Biscayne Bay anywhere between 9 to 13 feet are possible. You know, 13 feet. 15 feet's a 1.5-story building.
Right, right. So we have to be aware of that. And of course, that area is certainly under the evacuation order. What time? I know some people are trying to do last-minute things. I mean, you can't say this often enough that they have to start getting out if they haven't gotten out now.
If you haven't gotten out now, you're going to have to you're really putting yourself to the wall to make a decision whether you're going to stay or get out. We would prefer that you evacuate and get out. That is the best, especially if you've not boarded or taken precautions at your home. If you can evacuate, that is the best thing to do. Against the wall, I think we're going to start seeing some effectiveness around midnight. So I'd hope that it's 8:04 right now. In the next 56 minutes, you'd really want to be doing something. Now, we've had a couple of people call the help center downstairs, and we want to give out some addresses. 9063 Southwest 6th Street, zip code 33174. No, you do not have to evacuate. 8991 Southwest 34th Street. Zip code there, 33165. You do not have to evacuate. And 5220 Riviera Drive in zip code 33146. You do not have to evacuate as well, but we hope that you are boarded in and secured and ready for this.
And it might be a good idea, too, to let folks know where the evacuation centers are. After all, there might be some folks who have been so busy all day trying to get their homes situated that they may not be aware. In Metro Dade, we have a list. Some of these shelters, we will tell you, have been closed, but if push comes to shove, they will still take you. What they're trying to let you know is please go to another one if you can, because they have reached capacity. North Miami Beach High, we understand that is closed. Greek Orthodox Church, that is closed. Miami Coral Park High, that is open. ML King Elementary, Miccosukee Indian Reservation, and the University Lakes Rec Hall is also closed. Evacuation level B, Sunset Park Elementary is open. Citrus Grove Middle. Miami Edison High has been closed. Moving on to evacuation level C, we also see Jose Marti Middle School up there. It's at 5710 West 24th Avenue. Alapata Middle, we are told, is closed. Right there you see Bright James Elementary. That's at 2530 West 10th Avenue. Dunbar Elementary is open. Hialeah Middle School again. Miami Carroll City. Charles, we'll just go down the list here. North Miami Middle. We are told that the following are closed. Brentwood Elementary, Miami Lakes Technical Center, those two are closed, and we have not yet received word on Highland Oaks Middle. There you see two others, Norwood Elementary. There we go. Miami Lakes Elementary, 14250 Northwest 67th Avenue, and the Van E. Blanton Elementary School, that's at 10327 Northwest 11th Avenue. Again, some of these have been closed, but we are told by these people if you cannot get to the other ones, they will take you in. Here are some other ones. The Arcola Lake Elementary School, Miami Gardens Elementary, Skyway Elementary, we are told, is closed. Comstock Elementary, Palm Springs North Elementary, Auburndale Elementary, Laura Park Elementary, Kelsey Farr Elementary, Olinda Elementary, Flagami Elementary, South Miami Senior High, Green Glade Elementary, Kendall Lakes Elementary. You get the idea that many elementary schools in Dade County are shelters, and high schools as well. Richmond Heights Middle, Gloria Floyd Elementary, Leawood Elementary, Miami Sunset High. I want to talk a minute about a few hours ago, 3 hours ago, I was downtown and I saw so many homeless people standing outside, not taking any precautions, and you know, you have to wonder what's going to happen to these people as well.
Well, it's scary to think about because a lot of them, we talk about the mud flats underneath I-395. For those people that come into downtown, a lot of them there, a lot living in drainage ditches. It's going to be absolutely awful. Susan Wallace interviewed a man she found on the street last night, and she told him, he said, did you know, she said, did you know a hurricane is coming? And he said, no, I didn't. And he said, well, I'm going to go get ready. And she said, well, what are you going to do? He goes, you know, I'm going to go get in my box and be ready. It's really sad. I know that earlier today we were out at the Camillus house, and they were trying to do as much as they could to get some people in.
But it's important to note, they are not a shelter.
They are not a shelter.
They're only 5 blocks off of Biscayne Bay.
They're right down here where we are as well.
Right.
So they were trying their best to get the word out, to help people get transported to places if they needed to be.
Well, it's a sad situation, and we certainly hope that some of the police and fire agencies, which are now perusing the area, I saw not too long ago they were going around with sirens on helping people to get out, that maybe they will be taking them to some of the shelters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's remind people of a couple of things here. Broward, east of I-95, all evacuation. We can't stress this enough. Let's go back and touch on Kate Hale, her speech a little bit earlier about no more transportation as far as people calling now. It is too late. They've tapped the resources to the extreme right now.
She was talking about special needs people. Right. What she was talking about is how you need to be prepared, and they have a list. And the people who are caretakers of these people who cannot have their own mobility, who cannot get around themselves, need to have called months ago to have pickup for these people. And I think they had picked up 150. They had an extra 150 people call in and say, help us. And which all she could say is we simply cannot go and get these people. Joe Brennan, Metro Traffic, said that he was thinking that perhaps Miami Beach Police, Miami Beach Fire could also help some of these people.
Right, as well. And that's one thing that we try to stress every year as we come into hurricane season is the pre-needs registration. And I think once again, because we've become lax, we forget all about that. Let's go ahead and put up the coordinates here and show you one more time what we're talking about. This has not been adjusted. The winds now are at 145. It is now 185 miles away from Miami to the east of Miami. Still the pressure 923 millibars. Barometric pressure now 27.26 inches of mercury. Continuing on its westerly track at 16 miles per hour. Let's go ahead and throw on the satellite loop and give you an idea. There you can see the eye still out there a little bit. what you're looking at that you're seeing is going up the state. Really does not a lot to do right now with Andrew, but you can still see some of the feeder bands right there. And if you look, it's really tough to pick out on the satellite shot, but there is a little bit of a break there in the clouds between South Florida and the leading edge of Andrew. I just did some calculations, and still on this rate at 185 miles and at 16 miles per hour, we come out to 11 hours and 56 minutes. So that puts us still right around the 8 o'clock hour. Can we go ahead and check radar right now and see what's out there? We're still looking right there. There you can see the eye now coming over Nassau, that hole in the middle. That is the eye just passing right to the north of Nassau. And there you can see what's going on. Okay, right there, Miami radar is going out there and scanning that. You can see a feeder band now extending up in toward Freeport. And right there to the west of West Palm Beach, that is another feeder band that has held itself together and made it on shore. But there is the eye of Andrew, looking pretty impressive right there. And that is nothing but wind and rain, violent weather on its way.
And the strongest part of the storm would be northwest of the eye.
Yes, where it looks like right now on this track could possibly be Broward County, just like the hurricane of 26 that
Broward
did
County.
So much damage. That's what it's looking like right now, is Broward County, if it stays right on this track. But still, though, it all depends with the eye and the fluctuations and some things that the eye does, but it's still pretty much looking like Broward County. And that would be very much reminiscent of the 1926.
Well, you know, also, too, we want to talk about, for folks who have not been through a storm of this magnitude, a hurricane of this magnitude before, is it a certainty? Electricity is going to be out, water is going to be out, but the question is for how long?
No one ever knows this. That's the great $64,000 question. It depends on the amount of damage that is done as the hurricane comes through. The water is definitely going to be a problem. Gas lines become a problem. So does the electricity, as you said. And what Brian's been touching on all day long is also this point of the county inspections that have to be done before you can go back in. They're going to go into the area right around the eye where the eye came on shore and go through everything thoroughly before they let anybody in. And that includes people just to go and get to see what's left. And if you remember back to the San Francisco earthquake during the World Series, the same thing. People had to wait for days while the inspectors went through. It'll be the same scenario here, right where the eye of Andrew goes through.
You and I were talking earlier about the cranes. We are catty corner at this station. We are in downtown Miami. We are catty corner from a construction site that has two very large cranes.
Yes.
I'm in double trouble because my condo is right next to a construction site.
On Brickell.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes, and there's also a very large crane. But talk about the mechanics of those cranes and how they are situated where, you know, precautions like this are taken.
Yeah, one of our engineers went over and talked to the guys over there, and the term that I was told was freewheeling, where they just allow the crane, the armature of the crane, the big long arm you see on top, they're going to let it just go in the wind.
Like a weather vane.
Like a weather vane. It's just going to like point and move with the wind. And also they were telling us that the structures do not exactly, they don't like fall in a column. That as it starts to topple, if it were to topple, sections just break apart. So it would be like 25% of the area that it occupies as far as its height. Like if it's 300 feet high, 75 feet would be the area right there. So we're watching those cranes.
Indeed,
right
we
now.
are.
Let me, Brian Norcross, I thought he was taking a break there for a second. Okay, winds now in Miami coming out of the north at 23, gusting to 40. And let's see here, West Palm Beach, winds out of the northeast at 14. Gusting to 24. So Miami right now, we're in one of those bands right now with the showers and the heavy wind. One of the leading edges of Andrew right now, just one of those bands way out ahead of the system.
We understand that Channel 4's Marianne Murciano is standing by live at the Civil Defense Center. Marianne, what can you tell us?
Well, we're getting ready to have a news conference at 8:30, and there are a lot of speakers in this one, but let me give you a little bit of a preview of what we know so far. There have been a lot of problems with transportation. The county was expecting 50 extra buses from Dade County School System. They only received 19 of them. They weren't able to get enough drivers. So that's part of what's causing this big mess with the transportation and is leaving some people stranded. Some of the people that have been left stranded, aside from that, are people who are in the ACLF, the Adult Congregate Living Facilities. And these are people who were depending on their own system of bus service to get them around. Well, what's happened is that they haven't been able able to follow through with all of these with all of these buses and the transportation system that they needed. They were counting on the Metro-Dade bus system. They are backed up. Conclusion is that there are a lot of people who have been stranded. Until a little while ago, there were at least 150 people at a nursing home, the St. Francis Barry College nursing home. We've just received word that these people are now being transported to FIU's Tamiami campus, and even though that's really good news for them because they are getting out of there, the bad news is that that place is where all the Monroe County people are being evacuated to, so it's really tight quarters there, and it is a real big transportation mess right now, as we know, and I'm sure we'll get full details on all of this at 8:30, which is when the EOC is having its next live shot here from the headquarters.
Marianne, if you can still hear me, we gave a rundown of some of the evacuation shelters a short time ago. Have you received any late word on others that have closed?
No evacuation centers are closing. What they're doing is they're announcing the ones that are full because they're hoping that if you are going to a shelter and you know that it's full, that you'll head to one that isn't full. But they do not plan to turn anyone away. Hello?
Yes, okay. I was just getting some instructions from my producer. Marianne, thanks very much for being with us, and please keep in touch with us.
All right.
You know, that's a shame. When you talk about, well, we have all these plans, you know, they had 50 extra buses to get these people out of the adult congregate living facilities, and you have to remember that these bus drivers are human beings too, and they have to take care of their own families.
Right, and probably hadn't been thinking about it and had to go board up and lay in supplies like the rest of us did.
Right. We just talked about shelters. Let's go live now to Beverly White, standing by live at Miami Carroll City. Is that right, Bev? Hello, Beverly, can you hear us?
Inside Carroll City High School at 3422 Northwest 187th Street. Again, we're in Carroll City, and although it looks like a capacity crowd, you can look over here in the cafeteria and see in the distance, this school is using every available space for the people displaced by the impending hurricane. They're taking people from all over South Florida, and they tell me despite the fact that it looks quite crowded, they have room for plenty more. In fact, this shelter is preparing to accept busloads of the overflow crowd from a shelter in North Miami Beach. But again, it's a very large high school. They've got about 1,000 people here now. Their capacity is for 3,500 and possibly more. In fact, they're prepared to take as many as they can, and they stress that the people who make their way to this location, once again, 3422 Northwest 187th Street in Carroll City, if you come out here, bring your own bedding, bring some food, bring something to keep you occupied. People in the corner over here have even brought their own radios and lanterns. They're prepared for the worst, for a long wait in the presence of hundreds, perhaps thousands of strangers. It's not stressful at all. Everybody's going out of their way to be kind and compassionate. The American Red Cross is supervising this location, as they are many others. And thus far, we understand they've been able to pull this one off without a hitch. Again, they've got lots of room in Carroll City. If you're driving around looking for a shelter to take you in or your family, you might want to make a beeline for this place. It's large, it's spacious, it's friendly, and they certainly have room for you. Again, we understand at least room for 1,500, perhaps 2,500 more, because it's a big school. The cafeteria looks packed. The hallways are teeming with people of all ages, security personnel, Red Cross folks, volunteers, everybody you can think of is here making their presence known, being as gracious and patient as they can. And you see here in the cafeteria now, folks are just filling time, trying to be patient and understand that this is a large facility with a lot of folks who've never laid eyes on one another, but suddenly, because of the hurricane, the impending storm, they've become a community. If you care to join this community, head on over. Like I said, it seems they've got plenty of room.
Beverly, it doesn't look like a lot of those folks brought their own bedding and the other things you mentioned, food and water.
That's right. If I understand you correctly, you're asking did they bring plenty, or you're saying that they did. Indeed, you're right. Got a young man here with a chair on his head. He brought his own seating equipment because I guess he realized there's going to be, a shortage of everything that you would want for creature comforts. But the folks who didn't bring chairs are being helped along. We got baby carriers, infants, toddlers. I see a lady here with a stack of Pampers. She came for the long haul. And whatever it takes to keep you and your family comfortable, you're coming to a shelter that is about like I said, it's not capacity yet, but they're prepared to provide you with space and kindness, but not much more. So whatever you can bring, and if you got extra, bring extra, because it's a community now, and they're going to be here for quite some time.
But I do notice, Bev, that there is some food there that the Red Cross
I'm afraid
provides.
I can't hear you any longer.
All right, Bev, thanks very much for being with us. So, again, Marianne pointed out that no center is really closed. What they're saying, they have reached capacity. Beverly just pointed out that that particular one has room for 3,500 people.
Exactly.
And they're nowhere near that.
Exactly. And one more thing that we want to bring up, medical volunteers are desperately needed at Dade County shelters, and I'm sure that probably applies for Broward County shelters as well. It is urgent. They are really understaffed right now. So if you have any type of medical training, they'd like to hear from you, or else if you live near a shelter, just stop on by and see what kind of help you can be. It seems like they are really understaffed this evening.
Especially because you have to remember that the folks who live in adult congregate living facilities or nursing homes, this is where they're going to be going. And while I'm sure a lot of their staff has made sure that they have any kind of medication that they need, they may have other needs as well. Administering that medication, so on and so forth. Talk about the preparations for the ACLFs. These are adult congregate living facilities. They're not quite nursing homes, but they have plans in effect all the time. This is not something that they would be unprepared for. Am I right?
Oh no, not at all. Because majority of them do have full-blown evacuation plans, just like the hospitals on the beaches. Many of them, because of the time involved for having to move the elderly and also the people that are handicapped, takes some time. So therefore, they start preparing a little bit earlier for this. If they are in an evacuation zone, they do their best. I know that some of them do try, even if they're not in an evacuation zone, just to go ahead and try to move the people that they can that maybe do not need as much specialized attention, so that way they can go ahead and ride things out with the people that need more specialized and more detailed attention.
Must be especially frightening for them.
Exactly.
We talked about evacuation zones. We understand Channel 4's Kerry Sanders has just returned from Miami Beach, and he has this update.
We're on Miami Beach off about 3rd Street, and here's one of the surfers. Are you quitting now?
Yeah, for the moment.
For the moment?
Yeah.
What, you think you're going to come back?
Yeah, definitely. A little later, because now the cops are giving us trouble.
Hey, you surfers, everybody out of the pool. You guys, it's time to come in.
And despite word that they should be getting off the beach, you can see some surfers are now returning and heading back in. You understand how dangerous this hurricane is, don't you?
Yeah.
So when do you leave?
Tonight, probably. Oh, I don't got my watch anymore. We'll leave tonight. We'll be back out here tomorrow, though, dude. Under the eye. Because it's worth it, man. This summer, you know, it's flat. We followed this hurricane ever since it left Africa, man. Tropical storm. We were hoping for it to turn into a hurricane, and it's great.
All right, let's take a look out there as we continue to talk. You're telling me that this is unusual to even get this sort of stuff for surfing, this sort of wave action.
It ain't that great right now, but it's going to pick up. But yeah, for the summer, this is good enough for us Florida surfers.
Some of them are leaving, some of them aren't leaving. I think they want to get their last big wave thrill.
Are you afraid that they're going to wait for that last big wave too long?
I don't want to wait for that last big wave too long, but I think there's going to come to a point where we're going to just tell them they have got to leave.
What we're looking at is, again, another one of the squalls basically moving towards us. You can see the haziness down there, the rain, and there's some officers' units down there. They've turned on their lights. Let's come on over here and talk to this gentleman. Sir, you've got, you say, a couple hotels on the beach?
Yeah, the Carlin and the Pelican Hotel.
Well, what are your thoughts here as you see the storm Andrew's moving closer by the minute?
I think we're going to have major problems in the hotels. We couldn't be prepared as well as we wanted, but we're going to have big problems as we are having right now.
Kerry Sanders has just returned. Kerry, you know, those people who think, oh, they're going to pluck me out or I'm going to surf during the eye, absolutely ridiculous.
Well, of course, and I stress to them, you know, because we're on one-on-one communications there, I was stressing to them, you know, there is no Coast Guard out there to go save you in the middle of a hurricane. If the undertow gets a hold of you, there's nobody there to help you, and that you're gone. Now, we left the beach just a short while ago. You can see that was daytime video. It's now beginning to get dark out there, and I counted 9 surfers down around Penrod's. It's right off the beach there.
Still surfing now?
No, they were just getting out. There were 9 at the peak when we were down there for the last couple hours. The last ones were getting out. As a matter of fact, it seemed kind of strange, but I saw 3 guys walking off the beach, and they didn't have a ride. They were just walking away. And so, you know, right there, they're pushing the limit. We stopped, and as we turned the corner, another crew from another TV station stopped to pick them up to give them a ride. just cutting it too close, and
Exactly.
that's of course the big problem.
What were the seas like out there when you saw these three guys walking back up from surfing? Was it starting to get a little rough out there?
Well, yes, but it's not like incredibly dramatic. It's not like we have huge white caps
Exactly.
or anything rolling in at this point. But that's going to come. That one squall that came across and hit us.
Right.
The sand was like stinging. It's like mosquitoes just because the wind's blowing it, and we had to stop the interview right there because the camera's about to get soaked, and that's where you begin to realize that this is Mother Nature.
Oh, definitely Mother Nature.
You and I worked together during Hurricane Hugo, and you went up to cover it. You have been through a hurricane.
And not to be overly dramatic here, but covering that storm, I nearly died. And it was a very dangerous storm. We were in the wrong place as we were covering that storm. I fell into a hole that was filled with water up to about here. And one thing I want to stress to folks that